Hey, Jody here with weldingtipsandtricks.com. I've got a little bit of a different format this week. I've got a special guest. I'm here at the Lincoln Electric Training Center near Atlanta, Georgia. And this is Andrew Cardin. Andrew just recently came home from Brazil where he competed in the World Skills Competition for welding, brought home 5th place and a medallion of excellence. Thanks for being on, Andrew.
Oh, thank you for having me, Jody.
I wanted to have Andrew here, and I want to actually talk about Skills USA and kind of promote that whole thing, because I don't think enough people know about it. And I don't think that guys like Andrew, who go to compete in the world, on the world platform amongst welders from all over the world, Korea, China, Japan, Germany, the best of the best, and come back with 5th place, I don't think enough people know what that takes and appreciate what it takes. And so I want to promote Andrew a little bit today and promote Skills USA. All right, so Andrew, if you don't mind, fill in a few of the gaps that I made there on that introduction, and tell us what you're all about and what you've been up to for the past year or two.
And, you know, it's just been a great experience. It actually hasn't been just a year or two. It's been more like 7 years in the making. I started this process back in 2008 when I was introduced to welding by my instructor, Dan Rivera, and I saw some medals hanging in his office, and I was never good at sports or anything like that, so when I saw some medals, I just, just out of curiosity, asked him, and he started telling me about Skills USA, which in the day was called VICA. And I said, "Whoa, so you can actually compete in welding?" He goes, "Yeah, you can actually go to the world level and be an Olympian for your trade." So I said, "Well, I would really like to do that. I would really like to get involved with Skills USA." And he said, "Well, I have my guys planned out for this year, and you're only a sophomore, first year into the shop. So I'm gonna kind of sandbag with you, and we'll see how you progress throughout the year and your work ethic." And right away, he saw that I had a very good work ethic. I got that from both my parents. You know, my father has owned his own shop for, as of now, I think it's going on 37 years. He's owned his own automotive shop, and my mom, she fiber optics engineer. So I have very good work ethic just from how my parents brought me up. I was always in the garage with my father. It wasn't like I was sitting in front of video games and getting into trouble. He was always, ever since I could hand him tools or do anything like that, I was with him. So when I went my junior year, it was pedal to the metal. We started going in on Saturdays because he saw that I had that passion and drive and work ethic. Then he asked if I would come in on vacation time, Christmas vacation, February vacation, April vacation. Started going in on those times.
So this is during high school?
This is all during high school. I was only a junior at the time in high school.
Now, let me just point this out here. How many people are willing to go in and give up half of a Saturday to train for a skill that at that point you didn't know? You had an inkling that you wanted to compete, or at least you wanted not to be average.
Yeah.
You had an inkling, but you're willing to go in and work. And how many instructors are willing to give up half a Saturday?
And not many at all.
Right.
Not many at all, because I mean the amount of passion and drive my instructor shows for this trade and for his students is above and beyond anything I've seen so far.
I can tell that. I met Dan at a Fab Tech, I think in Vegas.
2012.
Okay.
2012, yep.
And he ran me down and he said, I got this guy who trained his kid back home. He's a great kid, and he'd work, and he'd be really happy if I could take a picture of you and send it to him or something like that. So that was then. This is now. Here we are sitting here. And
absolutely.
He placed 5th at that's a lot of water gone under the bridge. A lot of rods been burned since then.
And it really started picking up the pace when people noticed how much we were going in. People were like, "Wow, you're going in on Saturdays?" Just people within the school. No one else really knew of what we were doing. So Mr. Red's like, this kid has a talent and he has the work ethic to coincide with that. So I'm going to push him till he can't go anymore.
Basically, when it comes to these projects, we'll look at the projects in just a second. The projects are very interesting. When it comes to that project, you pretty much welded that project in the hotel room the night before.
In my head, I would just go over, I would wake up almost every single competition that I can remember. I would wake up in the morning just without an alarm, and for some reason, it was almost like a checklist in my head, just going down every single thing that could possibly go wrong, every single thing that I've come across that has gone wrong. And then I just kind of think to myself, as long as I keep my head on what I'm doing, what my training has been, and time management, those are the two biggest things that make a really good competitor. The skill follows those two things. because you can have the greatest skill in the world. I've seen guys who, they're much better welders than me. Hands down, I will say they're 10 times the welder that I would ever be, because they could pick it up very quickly, and they're more consistent. But those kind of people aren't the ones that, if they have that work ethic and that mindset, they get to competition, one thing goes wrong, they've never encountered it before, they crumble, they fold up, and that's it.
There are projects involved in these competitions, and they're little weldments along with regular plate tests and pipe tests like you would take to get a job at a shipyard or a powerhouse or things like that. Along with standard test joints, there are pressure vessels and aluminum and stainless projects involved, and we've got some of them here today on this table over here. So we're going to take a little quick look at these and talk about some of the little details that go into, and the time limits and acceptance criteria and all that on these welds. Let's bring the camera in over here and see if we can make this thing as interesting as possible.
Let's do it.
This is one of the stainless projects Andrew did in competition. If you could boil it down, what are the main issues with welding that stainless project right there? Even though you said that discoloration is not one of the criteria for the judges, you still want to present a good-looking product, aesthetically, to where you maybe get a bonus point or two, maybe subconsciously.
Well, like you said, aesthetically, you want the project to look good. And if something looks a little bit better, they might, visually and maybe subconsciously, you might let a couple things slide, because you're like, oh, well, he might, if he's on the line of a millimeter bead width variation, but the thing looks tight, they might let it slip just because of how nice it looks. On the other hand of that, you worked in aerospace industry, you know that if stainless and chrome moly and Inconel, if they're not shielded correctly, they don't want to cooperate when you try to weld it to criteria of what they're asking for. So 100% penetration and things like that, the puddle starts getting all swirly on you and going off in different directions. Having the color come out nice means that it was welding properly. It wasn't trying to run away on you, especially side to side. This project takes a lot of heat to be able to get all the penetration on all the butt welds and corner joints. So that's probably the two of the biggest things is putting it together and then trying to get everything to be 100% penetration. You have a purge hole in the back here, so this project is properly purged. You can't have any sugaring on any of those penetration points. And again, going back to the heat input and the amount of time that you have, this project is just cooking. It's really hot. It's easier to do if you can keep that gas coverage. So I had to do a lot of research, and I ended up coming across Mike Furick's BBW cups, which work very well for this project. I welded this project with the BBW cup, but as I was progressing on to World Skills, I wanted something a little bit more advanced, a little bit, make the project a little bit easier for me. So when I got a hold of Mike, I said, listen, could you be able to possibly make me a cup that was the biggest cup, the biggest inside diameter I believe you can buy is 1 1/16", which is CK worldwide. His cup is 1 inch. I said, would you be able to make me a cup that's 1 1/4"? So he ended up making me a cup that was big enough for the BBW to slide inside of. So he was a really big help on that. He made 4 of them just for me, just for this project.
Okay.
The way that they have these projects set up on how they want you to do it is the base plate always stays flat on the table. So up until the point of welding, you can flip it around to clean them, to tack it, anything like that. Once you are done, once they stamp it for you to move on to the welding portion of it, that you've tacked it up correctly to the specifications they've given you for lengths of tacks and so on, there's no internal tacks, that is when you can go on to weld it, and you can't weld it out of position other than where the base plate is flat against the table. So you can slide it off the table a little bit to be able to get these overhead joints, but you cannot turn this project to make it easier to do any of these joints, in a flat or horizontal position.
So you've got horizontal welds, vertical up welds, overhead welds.
Overhead corner welds, vertical butt welds, and around the pipe, so you name it. And that goes for all of the projects that are on the table, and all of the projects like you had mentioned before, the pipe and the plate projects, once they are in a fixed position, just like you were in a shop taking a test for the job, they have to stay in that position until you are completed the welding.
All right, so this is the pressure vessel, and when I say pressure vessel, that means it is tested using pressure. And so I'm going to get Andrew to talk about some of the difficulties here, the time limits, and the criteria that it has to meet. Take it away, Andrew.
Well, the first thing, obviously, is being able to put it together. That's with all these projects, putting them together is probably the toughest thing because there's no jigs allowed, there's no magnets allowed. So you have to put this together just traditionally laying on the bench and then standing the walls up, making it square and making it per blueprint. The second thing is just meeting the criteria and making it look sexy. You want this thing to be a knockout. You want people to visually be attracted to it. TIG, MIG, flux core, saw wire MIG, and they want you to be able to weld this thing out in any position, whatever they call out. So they might flip the sides where this side is flux core and this side is MIG, and that you need to be able to adapt to it and make it look like you've always done it.
So they'll throw you a curve. You don't really know which joints are going to be done with which process until you get there?
Well, no, they do tell you, but there is allowable 30% change. So they will change either weld sizes, where welds are supposed to go, and you have to make it look like you've been training like that the whole time.
Yeah. So we got an open butt, 2-inch pipe weld here, one here, a little sort of a socket weld, actually a fillet weld here, not a socket weld. Is this done just the same way where this plate stays on the...
Plate always stays flat on the table. You can slide it off the table a little bit. You can't slide the actual vessel past the point of the table for safety reasons, obviously, but you can slide it off the table to be able to get these odd overhead joints.
So you got overhead on here as well, and then of course this weld is done in position, so you start on the bottom and weld uphill.
All these overhead welds are done in position, all the horizontal, vertical, all done with this base plate flat on the table.
Okay, so these outside corners here, which look awesome by the way, is that done vertical up?
That is done vertical up, and I just kept it going. Vertical up to overhead.
Oh wow.
Yep, and I just kept it going to try to make everything flow. You want to try to eliminate how many stops and starts you have and try to blend everything in so everything looks all in one. So not only do you have to weld the thing out per criteria, and to make it look aesthetically good, that's one of the arts to it is, okay, what weld do you go about doing first? Well, you would go about doing this weld first, but you can't do this weld yet until you do this one, until you do this one, and it goes on and on.
There's a certain sequence, and then you can't, it won't work otherwise, or it won't pass pressure, or...
Exactly. You want to try to wrap up all the possible places where it could be weak.
What's the time limit? What's the time limit on this, and what's really the toughest part about this?
The time limit, they give you 8 hours to complete this project, and the toughest thing is just there's so many little pieces of criteria that go into scoring this, and trying to make it seamless is probably the toughest thing. Making it seamless. When you flow one process into another, you're flowing two weld joints into one and trying to make the thing flow.
That's trying to wrap corners, stop and a start in
underneath here. You have to actually push the MIG to drag the MIG. You know what I'm saying? There's so many different weird joints, again, like you would not see in the field really anywhere.
Well, you probably would eventually, but it's not common. It's not standard.
Unorthodox.
But there are those situations like those kind of situations when you're welding inside the web of a piece of wide flange or something. You're always going into a corner, and that's where you're remembering the proper way is to push or pull or use this 15-degree angle, and you're the proper way is to do it however you can do it.
Don't look too hard.
No, it's tight.
You'll start finding little things here and there. Oh, what'd you do there?
I'm critical of my own welds. I'm not critical of other people's welds. How do you go from striking your first arc to placing 5th in the world in welding competition?
Lord's sovereignty. That's all I can really say, because there's so many things throughout this whole time I've been competing where I thought, I'm not going to make it to the next round, or how am I supposed to train out of the basement of my house, and where am I going to get the sponsors from to, wow, I just won the right to represent the United States. So that's all I can really say on that. I mean, the hard work and stuff follows in light of who I'm working for, honor and glory of the Lord Jesus Christ. But I mean, that's that's all I can pretty much say is, you have, everybody has their goal, whether they're going to be the center of attention or they're going to put somebody else in the center of attention. So I chose to follow Christ in all things I do, so that's where, I just work to His honor and glory, whether I win, whether I lose, whether I'm putting, the front stage of the national competition or I'm in my basement by myself thinking, I can't do this on my own. So that's pretty much how you go from point A, how I went from point A to point B.
This is who he is. All right, Andrew, a little while earlier off camera, I was asking you, what's the best piece of advice you received? And you said, learn how to learn. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, when I was first starting out in my high school career, an instructor, one of the instructors said that to me, even before I was in welding. This was way before I was even in the welding shop, knew anything about it. And they said, you have to learn how to learn. That's one of the things you're gonna have to learn in life, is just learning how to learn. And like you said, it's a kind of a mind bender. You kind of look at the person and you go, aren't you supposed to be teaching me that? That's why I'm here. But over the years of me competing, just going through different situations that I've been put in, and I'll be doing it to the rest of my life, is learning how I take in information, and then learning how I take that information, I consolidate it, I structure it the way I need it to structure it, and then I apply it. So whether it's, a certain welding application or how I go about getting a job, and pretty much any aspect of your life, you can use that learn how to learn mentality. Time management, anxiety management, and everything along that line. So that was one of the most crucial pieces of advice that was given to me at a young age that I've applied throughout my time competing in life.
I said this before earlier, but for me, I guess I'm still learning how to learn, because one thing I have learned though is I have to get my hands on something pretty quickly. I cannot just read something and it sinks in. I can read a little bit and then do it and get somebody to show me and do it and read a little bit, but I can't read forever before I got to do it. Another thing I've got to do that I've learned about myself is I've just got to start. No matter if it's, I just got to get started.
Yep.
And just get into it, and then it kind of takes its own form, I guess. But I'm almost 58 years old. I'm still learning how to learn.
Absolutely.
But that's the way welding is. Yeah. Welding is actually structured a lot better than most things in the curriculum, because it is very incremental. It's skill exercises that build on one another.
Yep. Oxy-fuel, to stick welding, to MIG welding.
And then you start off with the bead, and then you stack beads, and then you stack them horizontally, and gradually.
And you can't skip a step, because it's the basic fundamentals you need to have down before you go. And going back to what you were saying just a minute ago, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great.
Yeah.
That's right. Here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go.
So one of the reasons I wanted to interview you, Andrew, is for one thing, I don't think you guys get enough recognition. This is the Olympics of welding, and you place 5th in the world amongst, you're the only representative from USA, one representative per country.
Yep.
So you place 5th, and I view that as like 5th in the NFL. On any given Sunday, you could have been 3rd, 2nd, or 1st, or whatever, but it happened to work out to where you got 5th. So cool. So at 5th place in the world of welding, and now the competition is over. You know what that equates to me? That's an undrafted linebacker who hits like a truck and runs a 4.5 40, and he's available.
Yeah.
Okay. So Andrew Cardin, what's the best way anybody can get in touch with you? Thanks for coming on, Andrew.
Oh, thank you for having me.